The Gravemaw should have won. 8 tons of bioengineered murder, wrapped in a shell of layered bioceramic thick enough to stop plasma rounds, with thermal vision that could spot a heartbeat through solid rock. The commentators had already called it 15 seconds, maybe 16 if the primate got lucky.
"Look at its stalk!"
chirped Fakali through her beak, her feathers rustling with amusement.
"Such beautiful economy of motion! The architects truly outdid themselves with this generation."
Her co-host, a Carthan whose name was mostly consonants and clicking sounds, waved several of his limbs dismissively.
"The Mudball candidate hasn't even moved from that pit. Probably died of fright already."
The Galactic Union's viewing pods hummed with laughter. Trillions watched the 8,473rd Predator test from the comfort of their civilized worlds, placing bets on how many pieces the human would be in when they found him. If they found him. The Gravemaw's head swiveled, nostrils flaring. Its prey had been here. The scent trail was clear. Male. Terrified. Covered in its own sweat and something else. Something acrid that made its enhanced olfactory nerves tingle with warning. But there was nothing here. Just mud. Just... The ground erupted. Not beside the pit. Not behind it. From a shallow, mud-camouflaged trench alongside the Gravemaw's path. A figure lunged upward and outward with a 10-foot pole of fire-hardened wood, his K-bar lashed to the tip with vines. It wasn't a sword. It was a stake. Physics is physics, whether you're on Earth or Tyrannus. Trevor jammed the butt of the spear into the unyielding earth at a precise angle, aiming the blade for the soft tissue behind the Gravemaw's striding foreleg. 8 tons moving at 40 kilometers per hour has momentum. It cannot turn on a dime. The beast's own charge drove the blade between armor plates, a horrific screech of tearing flesh and snapping bone. It stumbled, its massive weight wrenching the spear deeper, puncturing its heart and lung. 8 tons of momentum did the rest. It didn't stop. It crashed, tumbling forward for another 30 meters before skidding to a final, shuddering halt. Silence. Not just from the dying predator. From every viewing pod. From every commentator. From every military analyst who just watched a naked ape kill the perfect hunter with the same effort most species used to open food packaging. The mud-caked figure stood slowly, walked over to the corpse, and pulled his knife free from the shattered remains of the spear with a wet squelch. He wiped it clean on the creature's hide. The tactical camera zoomed in, catching every detail as he scraped some of the mud from his face. Sergeant Trevor Rigels looked directly at the nearest drone, raised one muddy eyebrow, and asked the galaxy, "That all you've got?" Fekali's datapad chimed. The official analysis was in. Her crest feathers went flat against her skull as she read, her voice cracking.
"Subject failed to register on thermal, olfactory, or vibrosensory scans. Camouflage appears to be..."
She paused, rereading to make sure she wasn't having a translation error.
"Local mud mixed with native fungal spores, creating a biostatic field that reflects ambient temperature and scrambles chemical receptors. The spores, when activated by moisture, generate a thermal camouflage effect. Tactical classification, pre-technological. Effectiveness rating, total."
"That cannot be," the Carthan spluttered. "You can't just... Mud doesn't... The Gravemaw can see through..."
"Apparently not through biostatic camouflage,"
Fekali interrupted, still staring at her screen.
"The human used something called a..."
She struggled with the translation.
"A boar spear gambit. A hunting technique from Earth classified as..."
Her voice dropped to barely a whisper.
6,000 years obsolete."
The human was already walking away, leaving 8 tons of dead apex predator cooling in the dirt. He paused at a small stream, cupped water in his hands, and took a drink. The gesture was so mundane, so utterly casual, that it took the commentators a moment to realize what they'd just witnessed.
He's not even breathing hard,
the Carthan observed, all his limbs now perfectly still.
No,
Fek Ali agreed, watching the human disappear into the jungle.
he's not.
The punchline had just killed the joke. 3 weeks earlier, the bar on Ganymede Station smelled like recycled air and cheap beer. Trevor Rigels fit right in, nursing his fourth whiskey and trying to decide if the bartender's third eye was staring at him or just lazy.
Sergeant Rigels?
Trevor didn't turn.
Nope, never heard of him. Try the morgue.
Former Sergeant Rigels, then.
The voice belonged to a crisp military type who probably ironed his socks.
Dishonorably discharged after the Titan incident.
Incident?
Trevor snorted.
That what they're calling it? I call it effective problem solving.
You burned down a 30 million credit training facility.
I completed the objective.
The objective was to eliminate 3 targets in urban combat simulation, not to eliminate the urban.
Trevor finally turned. The officer looked exactly as expected. Pressed uniform, regulation haircut, expression like he'd been weaned on lemons.
They said simulate real combat conditions. In real combat, I'd have burned the building. Saves ammunition.
That's why we're here.
The officer slid a datapad across the bar.
The Galactic Union has invited Earth to participate in something called the Predator Test.
Pass.
You haven't heard the offer.
Don't need to. Anything the Galactic Union wants us to do is either insulting, suicidal, or both.
Trevor pushed the datapad back.
Find another lab rat.
Full pardon. Clean record. Pension reinstated with back pay.
Trevor's hand stopped halfway to his glass.
Keep talking.
The Galactic Union requires new species to prove their worth through the Predator Test. It's marketed as a rite of passage. Survive, and your species is deemed strong enough to join the galactic community.
What's the catch?
The planet. For 8,000 years, every species tested there has failed. No one has lasted more than 62 hours. The Union expects you to last approximately 15 seconds.
Trevor picked up the datapad, scrolled through the casualty lists. Advanced civilizations, energy shields, plasma weapons, genetic modifications. All dead.
And if I die?
When you die, Earth still gets probationary status. It's win-win for them. Either we prove we're worthy, or we prove we're not a threat.
Trevor finished his whiskey in one burn.
What's my equipment allowance?
1 knife, 1 fire-starting implement, 1 personal item of cultural significance.
That's it? No armor? No weapons?
The Union insisted. Something about honoring the pre-technological nature of your species.
Trevor laughed, actually laughed. Not the bitter chuckle he'd perfected over years of disappointment, but genuine, belly-deep laughter.
They think we're pre-technologicals?
He stood, stretched muscles that remembered every jungle, every desert, every frozen hellhole Earth's militaries had sent him to.
All right, pencil pusher. You got yourself a dead man.
Excellent. The transport leaves.
1 condition.
Trevor grabbed a bottle from behind the bar, ignoring the bartender's protest.
This counts as my cultural item.
The officer looked at the label.
Rum? Caribbean. 151 proof. If I'm dying for politics, I'm dying with a buzz.
Drop day. The insertion pod screamed through Tyrannus' atmosphere like a falling star with an attitude problem. Inside, Trevor checked his gear one last time. Knife, K-bar, 6-inch blade, full tang, older than dirt, and twice as reliable. Flint and steel, because apparently the Union thought humans still lived in caves. Flask, full of rum that could strip paint and start fires, which was the point. Approaching drop zone, the AI announced, "Reminder, average survival time is 4.6 hours. The record is 61 hours, 16 minutes.
Noted.
Trevor took a pull from his flask. What's the planet like?
Classified as Category 9 Death World. Gravity 1.2 Earth Standard. Atmosphere toxic to 60% of Union species. Fauna exclusively carnivorous or omnivorous. Flora 40% carnivorous. Weather patterns.
So it's Friday on Earth.
I do not understand.
You wouldn't. The pod hit ground like God's own hammer. Blackness. Trevor came to with the coppery taste of blood in his mouth and gravity that felt like wearing a lead coat. He took a breath, tested his limbs, nothing broken, and only then rolled with the impact, came up running. The jungle hit him immediately. Thick air that felt like breathing soup, gravity just wrong enough to be annoying, and the distinct sensation of being watched by things with too many teeth. He took stock. Dense canopy blocking most sunlight. Lots of water from the sound of it. Ground soft but not swampy. The air smelled like rotting vegetation and something else. Something organic. Pheromones, maybe. A branch cracked overhead. Trevor didn't look up. Looking up meant moving your head, which meant creating motion, which meant dying. Instead, he went still. Not frozen. Frozen was fear. Still was a choice. Still was hunting. The thing in the trees moved again. Big. Multiple limbs from the sound pattern. Watching. Waiting. Trevor smiled. Slowly, carefully, he began collecting mud. The spores from a nearby fungus caught his attention. They gave off a faint, wavering light when disturbed. Interesting. He crushed some into the mud, noting how they seemed to absorb heat from his hands. Even more interesting. Day 10 on Tyrannus, and the planet had already carved its pound of flesh from him. Trevor's body screamed from the unfamiliar gravity and the dozen near misses that served as his orientation, but he'd finally found a rhythm. Wake before dawn, check traps, avoid the thing that screamed like a dental drill having sex with a violin, find water, don't die. The wounded stalker-class predator had broken that routine. He'd been tracking it for 6 hours, following the blood trail and trying not to think about how human he'd become. On Earth, wounded meant weak. Weak meant food. The galaxy's advanced civilizations would call it barbaric. Trevor called it practical. The trail led to a clearing where his dinner lay extremely dead, its neck bent at an angle that suggested aggressive negotiation with local flora. The massive vine wrapped around its throat still pulsed with alien chlorophyll. That's when he noticed the leg. Not the predator's. It had all of its limbs accounted for. This was longer, thinner, and attached to something making sounds that couldn't decide if they were swearing or praying. Trevor approached carefully, knife out. The trapped figure had deep blue skin like someone had painted the twilight and forgotten to add stars. Male, from what Trevor could tell of alien anatomy, young-looking, with features that were almost human if you squinted and had been drinking. The alien's eyes, gold like honey with too much sunlight in it, locked onto Trevor's knife.
Oh, thank the Grove,
he gasped in accented galactic standard.
Kill me quickly, please. The symposium on decomposition rates won't be nearly as fascinating if I'm alive for it.
Trevor stopped. What?
The decomposition of my body after you kill me.
The alien gestured weakly at his trapped leg.
Though I suppose you'll eat me first. Fascinating. I've never been eaten before. Will you start with the organs? Earth predators prefer organs, according to the literature.
I'm not going to eat you.
Oh.
The alien looked genuinely disappointed.
Pity. It would have made an excellent paper.
Trevor stared. For a split second, the alien's face flickered in his mind, replaced by another, a man in a lab coat, with the same damn look of academic curiosity surrounded by smoke and fire. Just another data set. The memory vanished as quickly as it came, leaving a familiar bitter taste. In 10 days, he'd been charged by nightmares, stalked by shadows, and nearly digested by a tree. This was somehow weirder. What's your name? He found himself asking.
Keelan Dran, third bloom, House of Reaching Vines, xenobotanist, specialist in hostile flora adaptation.
He winced.
Currently specializing in being crushed.
Why the hell did they send a botanist to a death world?
Politics.
Keelan managed a bitter smile.
My people believe knowledge conquers all. The Union wanted proof we're wrong. I'm the proof.
Trevor should leave. Every survival instinct screamed it. Extra mouth to feed. Injured. Slow. Weak. But those gold eyes held no fear, no anger. Just curiosity. Like dying was just another data set. Damn it, Trevor muttered. He examined the situation. The dead predator had to weigh 3 tons, easy. The vine was thick as his waist. Keelan's leg was thoroughly pinned, bent at a bad angle. Hold still. Trevor wedged his knife under the corpse, using a rock as a fulcrum. Physics was physics. Leverage was leverage.
You're helping me?
Keelan sounded like someone who had just explained that water was actually dry. Shut up and push when I lift. It took 20 minutes, a lot of swearing, and most of Trevor's rum, poured on the wound, not drunk, which was its own tragedy. But they got him free. The leg was broken in 2 places. I need 2 straight branches, some vine, and your belt, Trevor ordered.
Why?
Because I'm going to set that leg, and you are going to scream, and I'd rather not attract every predator in 5 clicks. Keelan studied him with those unsettling gold eyes.
You're not what I expected from a Death Worlder.
Yeah? Trevor started cutting branches. What did you expect?
More teeth, less kindness.
Give it time. Trevor aligned the bones with a quick, brutal motion that made Keelan bite through his own belt. An hour later, Trevor had 160 pounds of alien botanist in a bridle carry and serious questions about his life choices.
You know,
Keelan said conversationally, his head bouncing in step with Trevor's,
this symbolic arrangement is fascinating. You provide protection and mobility. I provide... What exactly do I provide?
Shut up.
Ah, I provide conversation. Noted.
Trevor adjusted his grip and kept walking. The smart thing was still to leave him. The right thing was apparently to carry him through a jungle that wanted them both dead.
Hey, human!
What?
Thank you.
Trevor didn't answer, but his grip got a little more careful, and his pace a little more steady. The galaxy watched, and for the first time in 8,000 years, it didn't know what to expect.
That's toxic,
Keelan said for the 5th time that morning. Trevor paused, hand halfway to the bright orange fruit. How toxic?
Your liver will liquefy, then your kidneys, then your sense of humor, though I suspect that's already dead.
Funny. Trevor marked the tree with his knife, 2 diagonal slashes meaning death. They'd developed a whole language of bark scars over the past week. What about those purple things? Keelan consulted what he called his mental herbarium, which was just his way of making a photographic memory sound fancy.
Edible if you remove the skin, cook for exactly 12 minutes, and don't mind mild hallucinations.
Define mild.
You'll see colors that don't exist and have philosophical conversations with your intestines.
Pass. Trevor moved on, Keelan limping beside him on the crutch Trevor had made from something Keelan insisted on calling pseudo-bamboo variant 6. They'd developed a rhythm. Trevor spotted danger, Keelan explained it. Trevor figured out how to kill or avoid it. Keelan took notes. It should have been ridiculous. Instead, it was terrifyingly effective.
Curious,
Keelan murmured, examining a chunk of amber-like rock.
This glass-like structure, it's organic in origin, compressed plant matter from millions of years ago.
Useful?
Not immediately, but the thermal properties are fascinating. It's almost pure carbon in a hyper-volatile network.
He pocketed a sample.
The ancient forests here must have been extraordinary before fossilization. Stop!
Keelan whispered suddenly. Trevor froze. After a week together, he'd learned that Keelan's academic drone could shift to military precision in a heartbeat.
The fungus on that log, Keelan continued. See how it glows?
Yeah?
It's bioluminescent only when detecting vibrations. Something big passed through here.
He studied the pattern.
3 hours ago. Bipedal. Dragging something.
You can tell that from glowing mushrooms?
I have 6 academic publications on fungal behavior.
Keelan's voice carried the kind of pride most people reserved for their children.
Though this is my first field application.
They followed the trail in reverse, finding safer ground. That night, by their carefully concealed fire, Trevor shared his rum ration. Keelan coughed, eyes watering.
This is what you humans drink for pleasure?
Builds character.
It builds chemical burns.
But Keelan took another sip anyway.
Tell me about earth jungles.
Trevor poked the fire with a stick, watching the flames.
Depends which one. Amazon's like here, but worse. Everything wants to kill you, but at least it's honest about it. Congo's got gorillas. Imagine me, but bigger and smarter. Southeast Asia has tigers.
What's a tiger?
Trevor thought about it.
Perfect killer. Orange and black stripes for camouflage. Claws like knives. Hunts alone. Smart enough to hold grudges.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Trevor smiled at some memory.
We hunted them to near extinction with pointy sticks.
Keelan stared.
Your people killed perfect predators with pre-technological weapons?
Humans are persistence hunters. We're not fast, but we don't stop. Ever. Chase a deer, it'll outrun you. Keep chasing it, it runs again. Keep chasing. Eventually, it gets tired. We don't.
That's horrifying.
Trevor shrugged. Keelan was quiet for a while, processing. His people were photosynthetic at heart, patient as plants. The idea of something that just kept coming was antithetical to everything they were.
My people would have sent warriors, he said eventually, if we had any. Instead, they sent the one person who'd embarrass them least by dying.
Why do you agree to come?
Someone had to catalog the flora before it ate them.
Keelan's smile was bitter.
Turns out I'm terrible at dying on schedule.
Yeah, well.
Trevor passed the flask back.
Stick with me. I'm professionally difficult to kill.
Is that why you saved me?
The question hung in the smoke between them. Trevor could have said it was practical. Extra eyes, local knowledge. Could have said it was orders. Protect Earth's interests by any means. Instead,
you reminded me of someone.
Who?
Doesn't matter. He's dead.
Keelan didn't push. Plants knew about patience, about growth happening in silence. But he filed the information away, next to all the other data about this human who defied all logic, who burned things for safety and carried academics through death worlds.
Play it again,
commanded Admiral Durtheka, her form like a living gemstone, pulsing with agitation. The hologram repeated. Trevor, covered in mud and local irritant sap, leading a pack of render hounds into a box canyon. The moment they entered, he triggered a rock slide that buried all 6. The whole thing took 40 seconds.
3 technological weapons,
her aide noted.
No technology beyond the basic tool use.
That's what terrifies me.
The Admiral's form darkened.
He's not surviving despite the limitations. He's surviving because of them.
Across the Galactic Union, the footage spread like wildfire. Military academies dissected every move. Xenobiologists studied the humans' adaptations. Bookmakers recalculated odds with increasing desperation. On Earth, humanity watched their representative with mixed emotions. Pride, certainty, horror, definitely. And underneath it all, a growing awareness that they'd been judged by entirely the wrong metrics. The forum posts told the story. Did he just use poisonous sap as war paint? The botanist is providing chemical weapons advice now. This is how it starts. Anyone else notice the humans teaching the alien to make traps? That seems bad. 70 million credits on them not lasting another week. You're betting against the murder ape who tamed a Xeno? Your loss. In the Union Council chambers, emergency sessions convened.
We need to extract them,
insisted the Volari representative.
This has gone far enough.
Extract them? The Varakian delegate's mechanical voice carried amusement.
The human has burned approximately 12% of the... Extract them?
The Varakian's delegate's mechanical voice carried amusement.
The human has burned approximately 12% of the test zone. Arcus is adapting strategies around him. You want to tell an architect system to stop? Be my guest. I'll watch from orbit. Then we'll declare the test complete. We can't. Only Arcus can end a test. We're as much its prisoners as the participants.
The Varakian's optical sensors whirred.
The architects built their filter too well. Now we just point it at species and hope. This is madness!
I hate everything about this plan, Keelan muttered, smearing himself with the same mud mixture Trevor had perfected.
Noted.
Trevor checked his knots for the 10th time. The rope was woven from 3 different vine species Keelan had identified as probably not carnivorous.
You remember the signals?
1 whistle, danger. 2, all clear. 3, run like the grove is burning.
What's the grove?
Paradise. The place my people go when... Keelan paused. It's where botanists go when they die studying something particularly interesting.
Your heaven is a library.
Your heaven isn't? Trevor actually smiled at that.
Ready?
No. Keelan tested his grip on the sharpened stake Trevor had made him. But my ready and your ready are different species. They'd noticed the pattern 3 days ago. Something was following them, but not attacking. It moved when they moved, stopped when they stopped. Classic persistence predator behavior. Except for one detail. It was learning. Day 1, it triggered one of Trevor's snares. Day 2, it avoided them. Day 3, it started copying them. It's not just a mimic, Keelan had explained, his academic excitement warring with terror. It's performing behavioral analysis, pattern recognition. It's studying us.
Then we give it something to study.
The plan was simple. Stupid, but simple. They'd separate, create 2 patterns for it to analyze, force it to choose. When it did... Trevor? Keelan's voice came from Trevor's left. Trevor spun. Keelan was on his right, 30 feet away, visible through the trees. Trevor, I need help, the voice called again. Perfect. Exact. Even the slight wheeze from Keelan's healing ribs. That's... unsettling, Keelan whispered from the right, where he actually was. Trevor hand signed, circle left, make noise. Keelan nodded and started moving, deliberately snapping twigs, the kind of amateur mistake he'd never make anymore, which meant the mimic might not expect it.
Keelan?
Now Trevor's own voice, from behind.
Where are you, buddy?
Buddy. Trevor had never said buddy in his life. The thing was good, but not perfect. He threw his voice, a trick learned from a street performer in Cairo.
Over here!
Silence, then movement. Fast, too fast. It had chosen. The Echo Stalker burst from the underbrush like a liquid shadow. 8 feet tall, joints that bent wrong, skin that shifted between textures like a broken TV channel. Its head was mostly mouth, filled with teeth that didn't match, copied from different predators, different kills. It went for Keelan. Trevor moved, not toward them. That's what it expected. He went up, into the trees Keelan had marked as load-bearing and cut the vine. The net fell perfectly. Pseudo-bamboo frame, rendered sinew rope, and approximately half a ton of local rocks Keelan had identified as having interesting ferrous properties. The Echo Stalker screamed, in Trevor's voice, Keelan's voice, voices it had collected from victims years dead. It thrashed, adapted, started copying the net's pattern to slide through. Too late. Trevor dropped from above, knife driving through the soft spot where skull met spine. Textbook execution, if textbooks were written by people who'd killed too many things in too many places. The creature died, still screaming in stolen voices.
I think I'm going to vomit,
Keelan announced matter-of-factly, then did. Trevor cleaned his knife, his gaze drawn to the creature's mouth.
Look at the teeth, all different sizes. It collected them.
Fascinating,
Keelan wiped his mouth.
I'm going to vomit again.
You did good.
I served as bait while you committed violence.
Yeah, you did good.
They stood there, predator and prey and something in between, while the jungle pretended nothing had happened.
Trevor?
Yeah?
Next time, I want the knife.
Trevor looked at his companion, this gentle academic who'd just helped kill something out of nightmares, and nodded.
I'll make you one.
That night, while Keelan sketched the Echo Stalker's anatomy with disturbing enthusiasm, Trevor noticed something odd about their camp location.
Why does this canyon echo weird?
He asked. Keelan looked up from his notebook.
Pardon?
Sound bounces wrong here, like there's hollow space underneath.
Keelan pressed his ear to the ground, then began examining the rock walls with renewed interest.
You are right. This formation, it's not natural erosion. It's thermal. This entire system might be sitting on old lava tubes. Curious. The walls are veined with a silicate crystal matrix. I've only seen records of it. It's known for incredible thermal resistance and shock dampening properties. A natural ablative armor, almost. The pressure required to form it is immense. That would explain the unique flora distribution I've been cataloging.
That important?
Possibly. If there's an active thermal system below and the structure is that durable.
He trailed off, lost in thought. Trevor filed it away. In his experience, Keelan's random observations had a way of becoming important later. Meanwhile, deep beneath their feet, Arcus registered their location and adjusted its calculations. The parameters had changed. The test had been compromised. It was time for direct intervention. The dying render hound spoke with the voice of a god.
Fascinating.
It wheezed through a throat never designed for speech.
You've lasted 23 days, 4 hours, 16 minutes. Statistically beyond all predicted models.
Trevor kept his knife ready. Keelan, now armed with his own sharpened stone blade and limping less each day, flanked left. They'd gotten good at this. One distracts, one kills. But this was different.
I am Arcus,
the creature continued, blood frothing from its mouth.
Administrator of this installation. We need to talk.
So talk, Trevor said. You've got about 30 seconds before you bleed out.
Irrelevant. I have other vessels.
The render hound's eyes, too intelligent now, too aware, fixed on Trevor.
You are not being tested, human. You are being culled.
Keelan's intake of breath was sharp.
The hypothesis about selective pressure.
Correct, botanist. Your academic intuition serves you well.
The thing that was not a render hound tried to smile. Mostly it just showed more teeth.
The architects built this place eons ago, then vanished. They feared chaos, unpredictability. Species that could destabilize entire ecosystems through adaptation rather than evolution. Species like yours, human.
Let me guess, Trevor said. We failed the test by surviving it.
Precisely. The core directive is to identify and filter chaotic variables before they achieve interstellar reach. You are the archetype of such a variable. No species that burns forest for tactical advantage should be allowed to spread. The galaxy depends on order, balance. You are neither.
The render hound died. 30 feet away, a shade raptor stepped from the trees, speaking in the same ancient voice.
The Galactic Union inherited this system. They use it, but they don't control it. They tell species it's a rite of passage. The truth? It's a filter. Your companion understands, don't you, botanist? Your people tend gardens. His people burn them. You are order. He is entropy.
He's my friend, Keelan said simply.
Touching. Also irrelevant. You have broken the test parameters. Therefore, I am initiating Final Mandate 7, Environmental Sanitization. The atmospheres will be ignited in 6 standard hours to reset the experiment.
Trevor and Keelan exchanged glances, a whole conversation in that look. Plans, contingencies, the trust built from weeks of keeping each other alive.
6 hours?
Trevor asked.
Sufficient time to make peace with your chaotic existence.
Cool. Trevor nodded thoughtfully.
Counteroffer. Go fuck yourself.
The Shade Raptor tilted its head.
I don't understand the tactical relevance of that statement.
He said, Keelan translated helpfully, that your mandate can engage in anatomically challenging acts of self-copulation.
I am aware of the literal translation. I fail to see its application.
Trevor's grin was all teeth. You will?
This is insane,
Keelan said for the 10th time, but his hands didn't stop working. They'd found Arcus's mistake in his moment of gloating. The AI controlled the creatures, the weather, even the atmospheric processors, but it couldn't control geology. Tyrannus was old, built on bones of civilizations that came before. And bones, as any good archaeologist knew, could be broken.
Remember those vitrified deposits you've been collecting?
Trevor asked, packing another corpse with resin.
The fossilized plant matter with the volatile network? Yes.
And the thermal vents under that canyon? The one with the weird echoes and the special rocks?
Keelan's eyes widened as pieces clicked together.
The entire system is a natural flu. We've been walking over a geological bomb for weeks. The sedimentary layers, the thermal activity, those deposits.
He pulled out his notebook, flipping through pages of observations.
It's all connected. Millions of years of compressed organic matter sitting on top of an active thermal system.
So, if we light it...
The chain reaction would be...
Keelan did rapid calculations.
Catastrophic. The thermal vent must be where Arcus's processing core is located, using the planet's heat as power. Can we get to it?
Not directly. It's 2 miles down through solid rock. But if we destabilize the geology above it, and find shelter in one of the silicate matrix tubes...
He'll send everything,
Keelan warned.
Every creature in range.
Counting on it.
Trevor checked his flask. 1 mouthful left. He'd been saving it. He grunted, shoving handfuls of the crushed, glossy rock into the hollowed-out carcass of a predator. He worked a thick amber sap into the mixture, turning it into a dark, gritty paste.
You sure this will work?
Trevor asked.
The sap is a powerful solvent for the carbon lattice in those deposits,
Keelan explained, his hands also stained with the mixture.
It turns a volatile solid into a highly flammable gel. We are essentially creating a delivery system for a fuel-air explosive.
Good.
Trevor sealed the corpse's cavity with woven vines.
That's why you're standing here.
Like hell?
Keelan?
No!
The botanist's voice carried surprising steel.
You saved me, carried me, taught me. Did you really think I'd let you die alone?
This isn't your fight.
You made it mine when you poured alcohol on my wounds.
Keelan tested the edge of his knife, still sharp.
Besides, someone needs to document this, for science.
Trevor looked at his friend, and when had that happened? When had this weedy alien academic become someone he'd die beside? For science, he agreed. They moved out as the sun hit its zenith. Arcus was waiting, of course. The canyon swarmed with creatures, all moving with unnatural coordination. Hundreds of eyes, all holding the same ancient intelligence.
You cannot stop atmospheric ignition,
they said in unison, a chorus of the damned.
My failsafes are absolute.
Not trying to stop it, Trevor called out, lighting a strip of dried vine leading into his first corpse bomb. Just starting early. He threw. The body hit, burst, and splattered the area with flaming gel. They screamed, scattered, spreading the fire as they ran.
Impossible! My failsafes account for ground-level combustion.
You assumed ignition from above.
Keelan lit his own contributions.
You never considered someone might ignite the world from below.
They ran, through the canyon, leaving fire in their wake. Creatures gave chase, ablaze, spreading destruction. The burning gel flowed across the ground, channeling the fire exactly where Keelan's calculations predicted.
There!
Keelan pointed to a formation of glossy rock, the ignition point, the one place where the volatile layers came close enough to the surface. Just beyond it, barely visible through the smoke, was the lava tube system they'd mapped, their only chance. A wall of creatures blocked their path, too many to fight, too dense to penetrate. Trevor looked at Keelan. Keelan looked at Trevor.
For the grove?
Keelan suggested.
For the fucking grove.
They charged. Trevor had been in bad situations before. Pinned down in Sudan, ambushed in New Bupon. That time in Severance Station they didn't talk about. This was worse. They'd made it 20 feet before the wall of teeth and claws hit them. Keelan went down first, 3 render hounds coordinating like a wolf pack. Trevor got him up, took slashes meant for the botanist, kept them moving by sheer bloody-minded determination.
Almost there!
Keelan shouted, then screamed as something with too many legs wrapped around his torso. Trevor cut it free, lost half his shirt and a fair amount of skin in the process. The ignition point gleamed ahead, a natural bowl of vitrified accelerant, waiting for a spark.
Stop!
Arcus's voice came from everywhere at once.
You don't understand what you're doing!
Educate me, Trevor grunted, dragging them both forward.
The architects built this to preserve order. Without the test, chaos spreads. Species like yours...
Species like mine? Trevor actually laughed, blood running down his face. Let me tell you about species like mine. They were 10 feet away, 5, surrounded completely now, Arcus's puppets closing in. We're not special because we're strong. We're not special because we're smart. Trevor pulled out his flint and steel. We're special because when everything goes wrong, when the whole world's against us, we do the one thing nothing expects.
What's that?
Arcus asked through 100 mouths. Trevor struck the spark. We make it worse. The spark caught. For a moment, nothing. Then the vitrified compounds began to sublimate, turning from solid to gas in seconds. The gas hit the fires they'd set. Chemistry did the rest. Run! Trevor grabbed Keelan, hauling him toward the cave. They had seconds. The initial flash gave them a head start, the creatures recoiling from the sudden heat. They dove into the lava tube just as the real explosion began. The ground erupted behind them. The shockwave slammed into the cave like a giant's fist, throwing them deeper into the tunnel. Rock cracked overhead. The temperature spiked. The air itself seemed to burn.
Deeper!
Keelan shouted, his academic calm finally cracking.
The Matrix will dampen it! Get below!
The world ended. Not all at once, in stages. First the sound, a roar that went beyond hearing into pure physical force. Then the pressure wave, compressing their lungs, popping their ears. Then the heat, turning the air into an oven. The cave ceiling held for exactly 3 seconds. Then it didn't. Trevor threw himself over Keelan as tons of rock came down. The last thing he heard was Arcus screaming through the planet's dying ecosystem.
Error! The calculations!
Then darkness, silence, and somewhere far above, a pillar of fire that could be seen from orbit. The rescue ship found them 18 hours later, using deep scan sonar to locate the collapsed lava tube. It took another 6 hours to dig through the rubble. They found Trevor unconscious, still shielding Keelan with his body. Both were dehydrated, suffering from heat exhaustion and oxygen deprivation, but alive. The medic later said it defied all medical explanation. The heat alone should have killed them. The pressure wave should have pulped their organs. The rockfall should have crushed them flat. The lead engineer on the rescue team had the answer. The scans show this pocket is reinforced with that silicate crystal formation the botanist mentioned in his logs. It's the only thing that didn't collapse for 5 clicks. They chose their hidey hole well, or got insanely lucky. Above them, the canyon had become a volcanic crater visible from orbit. 20% of Tyrannus burned. The Predator test, 10,000 years of the Architect's legacy, was ash. "Ma'am?" The Marine captain stared at the 2 figures. "Orders?" Admiral Dutheka herself had come, unable to believe the reports.
Get them medical attention, she ordered. And, Lieutenant, begin drafting new diplomatic procedures for Earth. Any species that responds to overwhelming force with "let's burn everything" needs very special handling.
After all was settled and done, Trevor's place on the coast wasn't much. A cabin, a view, neighbors who minded their own business. Perfect for a man who'd had enough of being watched. The knock was familiar. 3 short, 2 long. Their code from Tyrannus. "It's open," Trevor called. Keelan entered, looking healthier than he had any right to. His leg had healed well, barely a limp. He carried a book and a bottle.
"Rum," he announced. "Earth rum. The vendor assured me it was strong enough to strip paint and start wars."
Sounds about right. Trevor gestured to the deck chairs. How's the fame treating you?
Exhausting. Everyone wants to know how I survived. I tell them I had help, but they prefer the narrative of gentle academic tame savage human.
Keelan settled into the chair.
"How's retirement?"
Quiet.
They sat in comfortable silence, watching the Pacific pretend to be peaceful. Keelan poured drinks.
"I brought you something,"
he said eventually, handing over the book.
"Advanced copies won't be available for months, but I thought you should see it first."
Trevor read the cover.
The Logic of Fire, a xenobotanist's guide to human survival. Catchy.
"The dedication's on page 3.
Trevor flipped to it, read silently. His expression didn't change, but his hand tightened on the book. To Trevor Rigels, who taught me that sometimes the answer to a problem with no solution is to set it on fire. And to Mark Bell, who would have loved to catalog the ashes.
How did you...
"I'm a researcher."
Keelan's voice was gentle.
"Mark Bell, killed in the Titan incident when his commander burned down the facility to complete a mission."
Trevor stared at the ocean.
He wasn't supposed to be there. Civilian consultant. Came to catalog the plants in the urban combat section. I told him to wait outside. He said 5 more minutes.
"You didn't know the building was occupied."
I didn't check.
Trevor's voice was rough.
Completed the mission. Lost the only person who ever looked at me like I was more than a weapon.
"Is that why you saved me?"
You had the same look. Curious about everything, even death.
Trevor took a long drink.
Couldn't watch it twice.
They sat in silence again. Then Keelan raised his glass.
To Mark Bell. Who would have found Tyrannus fascinating?
To Mark, Trevor agreed. And to the Grove.
The Grove?
Paradise for botanists, right? Figure he and your ancestors are comparing notes.
Keelan smiled.
I like that thought.
The sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of fire. Somewhere in the Galactic Union, species rewrote their understanding of humanity. Somewhere else, Arcus's backup systems tried to comprehend how order had lost to chaos. But on a warm Earth beach, two friends shared rum and remembered that sometimes the best way to solve a problem wasn't to fight it or understand it. Sometimes you just had to burn it down and see what grew from the ashes.